Hello, welcome back to an episode of Rewrites, the Director's Cut, where we have fun with films. This week we watched Parasite. We had a great time. But firstly, how are you doing?
I'm all right. Yeah, we've had usual hours of technical difficulties, but we've tried to make it happen.
Yeah.
Like, keep the frustration to a minimum, but...
Yeah, I'm still feeling good. I haven't lost my will. Wait, is that for you or for me?
Yeah, both of us. Pull it together. It was a good film. At least it was a good film.
Yeah, true. Do you want to get straight into this review? Because we have stacks on notes. You've got tons.
I've got ridiculous numbers of notes. I can't read any of it. It's pointless. It's completely pointless. But I had a good time writing them.
First, snap judgment. Did you enjoy the film?
Yeah. I knew I would, but it was right in my ballpark. But what about you?
No, I loved it. Yeah.
Good.
I knew I enjoyed it as soon as we finished the film, but like we've left it a couple of days until we've had this chat. We've not even spoke anything about it to
Deliberately
each other.
Tried to
because
keep
usually we just kind of talk randomly.
Get impatient.
Yeah, we do actually live together, so it's hard to not have those conversations. But
I think it's easier when something's good though. Like when it's something's bad, we just end up being like. But when it's good, it's like we're actually excited to keep it all fresh so we can really get into what we're thinking on the podcast.
Yeah.
Want to stop kicking shit? We're just attacking the set.
It's alright, no one can see what you're on about.
That's fine. It's fine.
Do you want me to go through a quick synopsis of the film, or do you want to go through it?
Yeah, no, wait, you do the synopsis. Just before that, we'll just explain. So we've come up with this kind of new way of structuring the way we want to talk about the films we're going to do.
It's like this.
Yeah, it's kind of like that math sheet. We'll put something up on social media just so you can see. But basically, we thought rather than doing a generic, like, was it any good, and then just trying to, like, spew out a bunch of facts about the film thing, we tried to actually, structure it around a bunch of questions which... will help us get into more of the detail about what actually kind of makes a film good. So we'll go through one by one and kind of explain as we go on. But like most things, we're probably just going to start off by summarizing what happens in the film and then kind of, initial thoughts before we get into a bit more detail about the different aspects of a film that we think make it good or bad.
Or bad. Well, there's not that much bad with this film.
Nope,
there's
there
not
really
really
isn't.
anything. I mean, spoilers, but so I'll give a quick synopsis. Basically, all it is really is it follows this poor family from Korea, South Korea. They are living in like a sub-basement kind of place, and it seems like they're a bit of a con men family who kind of end up getting jobs working for this rich family.
Yep.
And one person gets in, then they help one of their family members get in, and then all of a sudden, all of them are all working for this rich family.
Yeah.
And then something happens.
So a good way of saying it. It's kind
of
of
without going into too many spoilers first.
Exactly.
Like I didn't think. Like they were con man kind of thing. I mean, you got a first glimpse of it, like during that first confrontation with the boss that they were working for with the pizza boxes, and then like it just kind of went from there. And I was like, "Ooh, saucy boy, what are you doing?"
It was kind of clever because again, it's a lot about kind of the code switching thing, and even the way, if you notice, the way the son was with his rich friend Min, who gets him the job. Min thinks of that as him as a super trustworthy guy and like a very kind of quiet, measured person, but that's obviously just the face that our boys put on in order to kind of take advantage of Min because he's rich. But when you're first watching it, you don't know that. You think this is just a nice kid, and he's not really going to take advantage of the situation. So it kind of, there's little bits of characterization which constantly just mean you're surprised by what comes up.
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah, I was constantly surprised about what kind of keeps coming from it. But a little bit of background into this as well. With this film was made on a budget of $15 million. Ended up making $258.8 million, which is a massive return.
Yep, big money.
I love because it was quite a small story as well. It was only really one location. Like there was a couple of others, which we'll get into later.
We did a game where you asked me to guess the budget, and I pretty much nailed it.
Oh, he nailed it. He absolutely nailed it.
That was because when you think about it, there's like one set piece involving the weather, and there's one big ass house which they built for the film.
Yeah.
Or just built the lower level, and then the top level was all CGI. But other than that, there wasn't really anything. The cast is like 9 people, really. Like, there really wasn't that much that came into it. Do you know it was edited entirely in Final Cut Pro 7, which was discontinued in 2011. So if you got, it hasn't been on it yet. It hasn't been updated since like 2011.
God damn.
I know, it's pretty incredible.
I don't think I've ever even used it since
It's a bit before our time.
I like that. That's good.
It's crazy little detail, isn't it? Because it was storyboarded fully beforehand. So I suppose from an editing point of view, like they don't have the option of alternate cuts or coverage cuts to use. So in some scenes they'll use like they were talking about one particular scene. They used the third take of the mother and the fifth take of the daughter, and they just stitched them together because those were the best takes. But like that's the only way they kind of got around the idea of no coverage, because it was shot so quickly as well.
Yeah, you can tell this film was really handcrafted and like just kind of picked to perfection.
Yeah, the production design is unbelievable as well. Like it's the detail in the film is kind of it's one of those one of kind of the things that I take as a measure of a good film is a kind of show don't tell attitude. And there's like no exposition. There isn't really many opportunities where they point out things in the background. You can just see the contrast in kind of every frame versus every frame of the rich versus the poor, which is kind of one of the fundamental themes going on throughout the film. Was there anything else kind of from the background that you thought was interesting, or because we both kind of went into it with no predispositions? Like I knew I'd like it, I know I like Bong, but I deliberately kind of always trying to avoid trailers and anything to do with the film before I'm going to watch it.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to point out the success of the film really from that it got. It was the first South Korean film to get any sort of
Academy Award Best Picture nomination, basically.
Yeah, there we go.
First foreign language film altogether to get a Best Picture.
We got Best Director, Best Picture, and then also I think it won Best Screenplay and Best International as well, or at least it was nominated in those categories.
The only two it didn't win was production design and editing, which interestingly the two Bong was really pleased about, because that's showing some attention to the actual Korean technical people who did those parts of it. But kind of sadly, those are the two parts of it that didn't actually win the awards.
Yeah.
But yeah, like those, it won everything other than that, basically. So it did do really well. Kind of people weren't too sure whether it was kind of, I think it was almost an element of it's the perfect time as well with the Oscars when it comes to the whole Oscars so white, like a very kind of few years of lack of diversity. So just, I think people wanted this to happen, and Bong's such a like beloved figure in Hollywood, like the way, even the way Scorsese he talked about Scorsese in his speech, and Scorsese gave him a letter the next day and talked about how him and other filmmakers are waiting on Bong's next movie. Like he's kind of very central in the actual landscape. So it was just one of those kind of, a lot of factors came together. He doesn't know if it's his best film. He says he hopes his next film is his best film, but it's I
suppose every director believes that, though.
Yeah.
Like, do you think he's going to be like the next Jordan Peele?
I think, honestly, he's done so much for so long and been so kind of influential that it's one of those that fans of cinema on that level kind of know and appreciate what you can get from him, and the way he's been able to translate into the mainstream is kind of, if more of that can keep happening, then that's only a good thing.
I didn't have any other background stuff, unless you have any sort of trivia.
No. I just got deep into all the kind of metaphors and themes and all the stuff he was getting going on whilst he was actually in the film.
Okay. Do you want to go into more like spoiler territory then, and kind of pick it apart a bit? So if anyone who's not seen it, go and watch it and then come back to it.
It's on Amazon Prime at the minute, which
yes,
is where I watched it. There's also
free.
a black and white version if you're an edgy bitch. But no, yeah, so the way we did our review is we've kind of broken it into pieces, what actual parts there are in a film, like I said before. So the first aspect we wanted to get through was world building.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to go through it. Cool, yeah.
Yeah. I suppose, do you want to explain a bit what we mean by world building as well, just off the kind of way we directed the thoughts we were having about it?
Like the way that it sounds really stupid when I say like that, but the way the world is actually built, but like more the believability of it. So like the way that it's written, like the story logic, does it specifically make any sense? Because you'll be surprised at many films that actually don't make sense,
no,
or at least like in terms of like a realistic aspect of the way that people do things. And like there's a beautiful case to like the way that there's consequences in that are happening throughout the film that then are even set up in the first scene, really, to then see. We'll go into it in a bit. But yeah, like the way that the production is designed, everything like that, and I thought it was great. Like the best thing that you said already was show don't tell. And like the first scene where they're already in like because they live in like this sub basement, which is like half and half, basically. Yeah. And they can see outside. It's just this shot from their point of view inside this basement, but you can already kind of see that they're in a bit of in a poor area.
There's a guy pissing outside like a drunk dude.
Yeah.
The whole fumigation scene, like clearly the people are subhuman there. Like the government will just send people out to fumigate, not warn them, not know anything. It's
but also
toxic.
their attitude of let it in because then it'll get rid of the roaches in our house.
Yeah.
It's like, so they'll put up with that. So they're already kind of halfway there themselves.
It's really efficiently done, but the whole two worlds are built up and contrasted really well and really quickly. And I think that's all due to the like specificity of just every shot was storyboarded. Every the entire house of the rich people is kind of that house represents that entire side of society. Yeah, I think kind of it comes down to the writing, the storyboarding, like we said, with the whole thing being storyboarded, but all of it is very detailed in making you kind of understand, kind of also irrespective of time. Like technology plays quite a big role, but it's all kind of family dynamics and kind of economic dynamics which happen everywhere kind of throughout history. And South Korea and kind of nowish is just the lens we're looking at it through.
That segues great into our next point, which I've still kept the term that you created for this called cacting.
Oh yeah.
Which is basically like the casting and the acting, which also kind of goes into more like the characters, the motives, believability, all that kind of stuff. And it, more to do with the world building in this, but I wanted to bring it up again, was like the family dynamic. You just kind of get it straight away, and you just kind of believe that these four people that you see on screen are like this family of like a brother, sister, mum, dad.
Yeah.
And they're all just kind of pulling together to get by.
Especially with the poor element of there's like a physical intimacy that you have to get used to when you don't have money because you don't have space. So as in like they're just kind of they're very kind of they learn how to like coexist like that. And again, it's kind of one of those things you get into a lot deeper as we'll get into it, because I think the family dynamics are interesting. Because at the beginning you think, oh, these guys are killing it, like they're all getting along, they're joking, they're bantering together. But then you have kind of certain scenes, for example, where they get drunk together, and over the course of the film you realise that like they're not as made for each other, or you're not they kind of, there's a lot under the surface which is kind of bubbling, which isn't as ideal as you think it is for the circumstances.
As soon as you said like they were drinking together, that one bit where the mum and dad are trying to trick
the kids,
yeah, and I was like, oh, where did that come from?
But even moments with the sister getting drunk and the sister getting a little bit more churlish, like she's very much the kind of, again, it's just interesting that he doesn't tell you anything. He doesn't say, oh, the big sister, she's the one who's the demanding, kind of tough one. The son is just a bit of a coward. Like, they have the guy piss outside and they have the son not go for an altercation. And then also the two styles of tutoring are contrasted, where the son's kind of, he gets a bit aggressive in a moment, but that's more for the kind of mother's appeal.
That's one of my weird moments that I pulled up.
I definitely wanted to talk to you about that moment, because it's really interesting. Like, there's a lot of dynamics at play.
Shall we explain a little bit more of the plot to that point, and then we'll go into that?
Yeah, we can do.
So, after this family is established in the film, the young boys... Oh, is he a young boy?
No, he's a teenager. He's kind of university age.
I mean, he's a young boy to me.
He's like 4 years younger than us, probably.
He's not. Oh, in real life he probably is.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think he's meant
just
to
for the
be 19,
relationship that
so.
kind of comes up, though. That's mainly the more reason why I want to think of it as a young boy.
Yeah, we need to keep it plain.
But anyway, his friend tutors this rich girl, and he's going away to university, so he recommends his friend for the job, which is the young...
poor
boy
kid
of the family.
But again,
the poor kid of the
he only
family.
thinks he's trustworthy because he's poor. Like,
Yeah.
There's a lot of dynamics about kind of poor versus rich, like use and abuse each other, and it's kind of explored in a lot of different ways in the film. Sorry, go on.
No, it's all right. And then he goes for the interview. He has a tutoring moment with the mum watching. And then there was this really weird bit during this tutoring scene where he just grabs the girl's hand, like, to feel her pulse, and then makes a point about that she kind of has to answer it in the moment and stuff. And I just thought it was weird.
It was deliberately quite a charged moment, wasn't it?
Yeah, what did you think of it?
I very much like at the beginning. I thought it's very odd. I firstly thought it was just Bong telling us that this son isn't kind of the mild-mannered, quiet kid that he'd been built up to be so far. So I thought it was firstly just to introduce that little bit of confusion about him. But then after kind of thinking about it more, I think it's all to do with that was for the mum's benefit, and it's to do with poor people learn very quickly how to read rich people in order to kind of manipulate them, as you see in the film, to their whim. And I think the son realized kind of quite soon the mother would respond to that kind of more kind of authoritative side, because she's obviously the kind of very naive, but she's not a decision maker. She's one who wants the kind of world to just work around her, and she can just flurry her way through.
Yeah.
So I think it's very clever on his part that was a show for the mum, basically, to me, just to show he's in control. He can handle the daughter. He can handle whatever.
And then he creates an opportunity for himself as he sees the young kid of the rich family, and then he decides to get his sister involved with what I'm going to call as the scam, because it essentially is a big scam.
Yeah.
And that what they do is she poses as someone who's not related to him to tutor the young boy. And like as you say, her approach to it as well, she'd already kind of gotten the background information of how they react as a family, so she just kind of went all in for it. And I just thought it was an interesting way to kind of make them seem so different as well.
Yeah, I think there was a few, just to pick out one moment as well, the moment before they're doing the doorbell, there's a moment where the brother and sister have a little rhyme they've invented together to help remember their brother's story.
Yeah, that was
I just
good.
think Bong's incredibly good at these very quick, very kind of endearing moments that usually side characters get. Like, I think there was a moment with the housekeeper where she does a little run, which made us both kind of, laugh a little bit. And
Which bit?
kind of earlier on, I can't remember exactly what happens, but I've just got housekeeper run made us laugh. I've got.
I can't remember that, but
this.
I'm sure. I'm sure. Yeah.
But basically, like, little side characters get these. Even the son with the bow and arrow, and the arrow sticking out of his butt and stuff like that. Just
yeah.
He deliberately chucks in these little moments of comedy, or the pratfall with the detective right at the end. Do you know where he's getting followed by detectives? It's at the most depressing, tense end of the film, and we just get a little pratfall.
Because it doesn't need to be there either, so it was specifically added in there.
But it's perfectly weighted, because it's just, you can tell as an audience member, it's just to give you that bit of release every now and again, where you're just like, oh, phew. Like, you really appreciate the laugh, because you're in such a, internalized kind of place about thinking about it.
Plus, it's like more of a normal thing. Like, something like that would happen.
And again, that's good acting and good,
and good directing.
Because I suppose we've not talked big picture yet about what we thought about the casting and acting.
Already with that.
You've got
with
one
the
issue
Paul
with
family.
that, I suppose, which it doesn't occur to me as much, but especially with foreign language films, you're bringing something up.
It's more for, like, someone who doesn't speak Korean specifically watching this film. I don't know whether there is like a bad line delivery, because like in English films, because I speak English, you can tell when someone is a bad actor, because like the way that they say something, or the way they kind of lean into it.
Very stilted.
Yeah. And like with this, because I don't know the language, I can't tell. So I can't 100% say whether like the acting is amazing or not, but from what I can see, and from like the vibes that I get, and like what the subtitles that I read from what the actual characters are saying, I think they do a great job. Like, specifically the Paul family.
Yeah.
Like, that was really cast really well.
The mum was really good as well. Rich mum was very good. Because, again, it's a very specific balance of, like, she's naive and sweet, so you like her, but she's so naive and sweet that it's just, like, it's fine for poor people to take advantage, because if she's been able to grow up, like, this is the way, the kind of psychology of it's all built up, that, like, the film wouldn't work if every one of these little interrelationships wasn't perfectly weighted. And the fact that she's that kind of... the way she says about, like, oh, the rain is such an inconvenience, blah, blah, blah. It's like she's not being insensitive about the fact that people are kind of drowning and dying in the poor areas. It's just her life is so separated from it that
she doesn't even know about it.
Yeah, it's like you can't... It's not that she deserves to be punished for it, but it's that you don't have to feel bad for taking advantage of her, because the world's let her become that way. And that's a big part of the logic, I know, behind justifying it to the poor people, to themselves. So I just think the way all of the characters... And there's also the fact that there isn't really any exposition. Anything you do learn, you learn when the characters are interacting with each other. And you don't... you learn it as you learn more about the characters, which also tells you about the film. So I just think, like, that way of doing it, where all the poor people kind of play a lot of different roles. So... But you believe them in the roles they're playing, as in... trapping people in the world, but you can also, like, get a sense of some of their, like, you feel the dad getting more guilty, and you feel him getting, like, at the end, you feel him losing his rope with the rich guy in the car and stuff like that.
Yeah, so, like, another, just quickly on terms of, like, the characters and their motives and the way that they kind of do things, it was interesting to see the way that they kind of introduce the other person, so, like, the next person from their family into their family.
Yeah.
And like the one thing that really stood out for me was like the way that the girl, the poor girl, because I'm trying to differentiate between them. Also, the reason why we're saying they're like characters like this is because we didn't want to disrespect anyone by saying the names the wrong way. and also it's just very it's hard to kind of keep up.
And it's easier also, I think, for people to keep it in like a track of it in their head, like rich family, poor family, like dad, mum, daughter, son. Like it's fairly straightforward that way.
Yeah.
So it's kind of out of not wanting to brutalize anything.
Yeah.
So go for it.
But speaking of brutal, the way that she just kind of casually slips off her underwear in the back of this guy's car to kind of plant him to be the next person gone. Which, like, for me at that point, I was kind of getting wary of the way they were doing the con, but at that point I was like, oh, damn.
See, that to me again was just a point about another extension of their own, the kind of moral code that they've had to grow to live by, where she might not have done that, I don't think, if he hadn't have been that kind of pushy come on with her. But I think in her head, once he did that, she thought you saw her realize he's crossed the line in her head. Now he deserves to be punished.
That's a great specific word. Like
cross the line.
Yeah,
no, that's a whole thing. Because there's a few fundamental phrases in this film which kind of
that is one of them. Yeah.
But okay. I knew, like, she decided this was justified based on his behavior, which again, it isn't justified overall on a thing of like he was a little bit pushy with a young girl, like, you know, that's obviously reprehensible behavior, but he didn't do anything.
Yeah, it wasn't with any malintent or anything like that.
He was
like,
just trying
to help.
No, he was trying it on, but
I mean, a little bit, yeah.
she knew that immediately as well. I think that's part of the Parasite, the title of the film, kind of takes on quite a lot of different meanings. Like, the first thought is poor people are parasites from the rich people taking advantage of them. But then the reason Bong kind of like, he had to defend it to his marketing people. And the reason the point he made was also the rich are very much parasites in this film as well, in terms of they can't do any labor whatsoever for themselves. They can't drive, they can't wash dishes, they can't cook.
Like, they literally can't.
So the whole parasitic thing goes in a lot of different directions. But again, there's also kind of sexual themes and genders and stuff like that, which are also kind of they get a moment's reference in the film, but and you kind of get it straight away, like political things too, with the North Korean kind of, like, you get the sense that he wasn't trying to preach, but he got in a lot of points he wanted to make from a director's point of view. Do you have any more acting news, or does that actually kind of bring us to the next
No,
category?
it's just the fact that I thought everyone was a really good part, because anyone who like had a sad moment, or, you know, you kind of felt their emotions, like I was able to empathize with everyone. So like even like the housemaid when she was kind of let go, but then the reason why she kind of comes back, which we'll get into as well. You know, just those little small moments. I just thought everyone like really knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, I agree.
Which kind of leads us into the next section that we've got is directing, specifically. And we've kind of put like a load of things into this, which was more like the production, cinematography, style, like the overall product brought together, which we've already kind of hinted at. But yeah, he really does nail it out of the park.
Yeah, I don't know if you noticed as well, but did you notice kind of a change in the use of camera movements and actual kind of motivated director use over the course of the film? So at the beginning of the film, the camera was pretty stationary. There wasn't that many kind of moving shots and stuff like that. And as we get further into the film and kind of more into the chaos and understand what's going on, there's a lot more kind of slow zooms and kind of camera turns, and there's a lot more kind of on the surface directing that I thought was kind of an interesting choice to make.
Yeah, there was certain like specific like transitions. There's a specific one that we both enjoyed.
The water level transition. Yeah. Did you like the cake as well?
Yeah.
The cake, he uses the physical prop as a cake to kind of go into a flashback of the cake on the floor in the present as in terms of a memory. But again, it's just how seamlessly these things work. And speaking about kind of flashbacks and memories and stuff, we'll talk about the ending in a bit. But that was another one where it's actually not as up for interpretation as people might think, but it's very smoothly kind of he plays with the idea of memory and the future and dreams, and kind of he puts you in a kind of very you're in an unsure place until you actually think about it some more, and then you're just depressed. but we'll get to that in a bit.
What I like specifically, I probably need to rewatch it in order to notice more camera movement specifically and stuff like that. But what I did like was the slow montage essentially of them bringing all of the family members as household workers for the Park family.
Yeah. Because
usually, like in an American film, where it's like 90 minutes where it would be this kind of thing, like that would be a quick montage sequence. But this, it just kind of it's just kind of able to play out naturally, and it was really enjoyable to watch it just kind of slowly build and burn, because you knew it was kind of building to something. And
it's a much more effective way of showing you as well that they've kind of taken over the house, like the way that he's having a bath and stuff like that. But it takes full advantage of the use of the space to actually show you kind of the way they've ingratiated themselves into that world, and kind of
because then other characters as well end up just in the background, and it's like, well, the focus was on them 10 minutes ago, but now they're just in the background like everyone else. So it's like they've already kind of injected themselves into this family. Like a parasite.
Yep, exactly.
I'm just trying to see if there's anything else I want to say. There was some nice slow-mo
I was going to say
revealing stuff as well. Like just even there was a specific shot right at the beginning where it was just kind of following someone going down this alleyway, and it literally just shows you from one alleyway to the other. And usually that'd be like a quick kind of cut sequence, but this just kind of followed it smoothly. And I was like, it's just nice to watch it, because then you get to see more of the world as well.
Yep. Now, everything's very, again, it's the whole thing with it being storyboarded, like with the rich daughter peeking on the stairs over the edge. Like, that's a 2-second shot, and that tells you everything you need to know about her, kind of growing attention with the poor boy, and kind of her jealousy now that the mum's getting attention from him. So a lot of these things were kind of really, really kind of efficiently done. And he also uses kind of a lot of visual and kind of literary almost devices, like things like repetition, the son saying this is so metaphorical, or honey, which is, honey, a lot of people call each other honey in the movie. I'm not sure how much you knew, but it's also like one of the most tense moments. Do you remember when they say honey when they come back in? That's one of the most tense moments in the film, and it's just the kind of reuse of that word and kind of what it actually means to a relationship.
Okay.
But I thought there was a lot of really interesting stuff like that. The weather as a metaphor, pathetic fallacy was a big thing going on. Like, you could just light versus kind of rain, basically.
There was a specific shot I wanted to bring up as well, when after a thing that we'll kind of get into, but the poor family are kind of going back home, and there's this shot where it kind of descends through all these power lines, kind of focusing back to them. And for me, like, it might have just been a shot. This is why I hate interpretation, because like it literally just could have been a shot of power lines, and like, oh, that's cool. But for me, I took it as that, like, all the intricate web of lies that they've kind of done, and they're trying to kind of walk themselves through this now. I just thought it was a really cool shot.
I know.
And then again, that could be a lot deeper than what it actually is, because they could have just been like, oh, that's cool. But
I doubt it.
Well, yeah.
Well, even during that scene when they're going home, I don't know if you noticed as well, but like everything was downhill. Every single shot where they were traveling, they were going downhill.
And there were also great shots just showing the location.
Using the sewer first as well as the transition, and obviously bring up the concept of underground again. But every shot of them running home was downhill, and it's just, everything's very kind of carefully visually set up to remind you of the contrast. Especially during that flooding sequence. The way the shots are kind of structured, it's not shouting it at you, but it's making it very clear that, like, this is the difference in the entire world. If you're rich versus poor, like, if you're rich, the world's irrelevant. You're kind of above all, whereas if you're poor, you're kind of at the whim of kind of everything, and it's all kind of luck. Yeah.
Like, well, one of the continuity stuff that I wanted to bring up as well, to do with like the directing in this.
Yeah.
Like, there was great continuity points in the story where it was just kind of consequences that they'd done. So like literally that first sequence where the fumigation was happening, and they make a point about keeping the windows open so that could happen. Like there's a flood that happens during the film, and the only reason why their basement gets flooded is because they always leave the windows open. It's like, it's such a simple thing, but like, they've already established it in the film, and I love kind of real points that they kind of bring up, because otherwise it could have been like any sort of thing, but the fact that they brought that up, it just feels so purposeful to add into the film. It's just like a nice point as well. Like even the point where the dad has to kind of go somewhere, and he leaves like the handle on top of the cupboard. It's like, oh well, he put it there before, so that's the reason why he could kind of find it when no one else could.
Exactly, yeah, but he didn't show you putting it there. Yeah.
Okay, so to kind of catch you more up on the plot from where we left it. So at this point, the whole family is now employed by the Park family, and the Park family have gone away on a vacation for the young rich boy's birthday. So they're all just enjoying the fine life, drinking all their drinking all their alcohol, eating all their food, just loving life, loving the view. It's a very nice view. And then they get a little bit leery, they've got a little bit drunk. there's this one point I wanted to bring up where the dad just kind of goes for the mum, but then they were in on it together. That was just an interesting character moment. Like, just didn't expect it. And then the old house lady turns up. Now there was a bit of context of like her story and what she'd been about, and she'd been there since the house was constructed by this famous architect.
Yep.
And she only wants to come back to find something. So then the family let her in. They find out there's a secret basement, and her husband has been living underground for like the last 4 years. Which I had a little thing where I thought they were gonna I thought the Park family was gonna end up living there, like all of them together. So I was half right.
Yeah.
There was something to do with the basement.
Yeah.
But yeah, what did you think of that moment? Because it really kind of kicked up. Like I was just like in my notes, I was like, oh, it's all kicking off at this point. Yeah, that was it was an interesting twist.
It was really smooth how, again, but like in all of these kind of films, they'll throw little, like, like dropping little bits of bread, like breadcrumbs to lead you on the path. And like the way he'd kind of hinted at things prior, and the way also the way this entire film comes together socially is really, really smart. Because one, the whole aspect of the kid being a tutor to a rich kid, that is like, that Bong did that himself. That's one of the few ways kind of poor people can cross that barrier in Korea. There's also the element of the downstairs bunkers. That's quite a common thing over there because of the whole nuclear threat of the world.
Yeah.
And you can understand why a like more paranoid kind of seller wouldn't have told people about it. So it's just the way it was all built up is very smooth. There was also like a clue earlier, which I noticed as soon as it happened, which was they say that the rich dad, who's kind of, his flaw is his arrogance. His kind of catchphrase, like we've referenced earlier, is crosses the line. He almost crossed the line, and that basically just means anytime anyone he considers socially inferior tries to treat him as an equal. If you break, like, it was always when the dad driver was getting over familiar and stuff like that, talking about whether he loves his wife, that he felt the line was bordering being crossed, but luckily the dad knew just enough to pull back. But I've kind of gone off the point here, but basically I just thought it was really, in terms of an actual...
I know, I was going to say there was another secret bit that you found out to do with the surprise, which was to do with the housekeeper.
Oh, it takes
two.
two. Yeah, she said she eats for two. That was what the dad actually says. She eats enough food for two people.
Yeah, then we found out why, because she was taking food out for him. But yeah, I didn't really see the twist of someone actually living down there coming off. So that was an interesting twist.
Links back to the themes as well. Like, he's called it a staircase movie, but the whole idea of like underground versus overground and stairs are a massive theme in this, and the way that like kind of the basement is framed on a wall with like kind of expensive china, and just you can just see this kind of like black void where the actual stairs go down, and it's just kind of like very, it's really good framing that it's always like, if I imagine if we watched it again, we'd keep seeing it and keep kind of seeing little things happening in the background there, but it's really well freight, like, the way you can tell the house was purpose built for this film, because the way everything visually comes together is just really, really kind of intelligently done. But I just think the way that scene balanced kind of tension and drama was really unbelievably effective as well.
Oh yeah, like it was either always tense or like it was always something, which always kept me intrigued. Like,
yeah, it was funny for a moment,
kind of coming across. Yeah,
it'd be funny now and again, but then on the whole, it was kind of like it was, and there was a lot of action happening. Like, the film is just constantly ramping up, but you understand it all because the visual language has been set up already around the house with the different people and their different relationships, and where they kind of, there's a lot of voyeuristic kind of stuff with that house as well, where I think I saw in some trivia somewhere, like, there's 14 shots of people looking out of windows at other people.
Oh yeah.
But there's a lot of, like, the other side type aspects going. There's a lot of major themes in this film that are kind of continually referenced, but they rarely come to a head when it comes to the kind of key scenes. And like that first scene there's probably two key moments. It's that scene we're talking about, and then at the end, the final kind of action scene.
Yeah.
And they're as kind of we both, I remember we paused it just before the woman opened the door for the housekeeper, because we both knew, this is a turning point.
This is where it's going to kick.
But we had no idea how it was going to turn. Like, it could have come into a horror movie. it could have become some weird family rom-com, like we didn't even know.
Which we'll get into in a bit when we do have some fun with it. But yeah, do you want to go more into the editing thing before we kind of pull back and kind of go through the rest of the film?
Yeah. I mean, in terms of the actual music and the score, it was kind of subtle, but I think it was kind of like more effective in when they chose to use it.
There was one point I wanted to bring up, actually. There was one weird bit where it was like, I put a note of it. There was like some weird alien music. Did you catch wind of that? Like,
Yeah.
Did you get any real reason why it was in there, apart from just to kind of make you feel a bit more kind of like, ooh, what's going on here?
To me, again, it was the divide of, because of a big part of this film, I realized, like, thinking about it more as well as being a kind of an element of imposter syndrome, of especially with the son. Like, all of the family are capable enough to do the jobs that they steal. Like, that's never in question. We see them doing the jobs. The problem is, and it's also the fact that if you look, that the jobs were gotten once the boy had the job. They got the other family into recommendations, not through qualifications. The fact that they forged it was irrelevant. And again, that's just making a wider point about the fact that, you know, it's not about what you have behind you and your actual ability. It's about who you know, kind of, in the world.
Always is.
Exactly. And it's just the way
it's one
that
of the main points he kind of brings up as well.
Exactly. That theme kind of is there. Like, there's also like a colonial theme, even with the Indian. If you think about the way the idea of a Native American, which is a really complicated, bloody history, is just like, Bong's talked about this himself. It's just kind of like boiled down to the idea of like a kid's toy with a bow and arrow, and like that's the way society handles these things, where rather than having a nuanced conversation in full light of the historical context, we'll just boil it down to the surface level and just take advantage of it from a, you know, entertainment value point of view. So I think that really kind of the kind of, in terms of cuts and pacing, like I think we talked about this before, but it's almost like,
yeah, we've kind of covered this, and it was just like a nice slow pace.
The less to be said is almost the better. Like, it was just very unnoticeable. There was a lot of longer shots than you often see in films, and I really appreciate that, but it wasn't like a long shot for the sake of like, oh cool, we can do a camera long shot and we go over a hill and into some water.
Extraction.
Yeah, it's like there's some actual kind of motivated, you understand the point it's making about characters and their relationships with each other.
Yeah, I think the way that the cuts were done really well, especially with like the music and the tension building up nicely, was the part after the bits that we've said in the story, because basically what happens after that point is the housemaid finds out they're all imposters, so then she threatens to tell the rich family that they're all, you know, and then a fight breaks out, and then they find out that the rich family are coming back home. So they have to kind of sort out the situation, and then they're hiding from the family because they're not supposed to be there, because they're not supposed to show that they're actually all related. And the point I'm trying to make, that I'll get to, is that where they were all hiding and they were all trying to get out of the house. That was really well edited and put together, because all the time I was like, oh, are they going to get caught? Are they actually going to get caught? Because usually in those situations you kind of know that they're not going to get caught, but in this film, the way that it was kind of brought up as well, is like, oh, I don't know whether they're actually going to get caught or not.
Yeah.
So you really get lost in the moment, and you kind of feeling the feelings that they're feeling. That was really
it's
nice
where
touch.
Even where it might be like a cliche situation, because all the characters are so real and their relationships are so real, you know, the cliche situation is still not a cliche as a viewer, because you don't know how these people are gonna, you know, you never knew what any of the kind of people were gonna do in this film. So I think that just element of like the character side of it, and even the fact of like, you know, it's set up that the dad and the son are both cowards, and then, you know, that kind of tension of, if you're called a coward your whole life, you know, and you can't protect your family, like when he's got his daughter in that kind of position right at the end, is that what made him snap? Is it, you know, there's a lot of different pressures that are built up over the course of the film, which by the end, when things kind of culminate, they're kind of, there's a lot of different explanations and a lot of different ways that things kind of come together to make a kind of effective point. It's weird because I'm trying to talk about it without spoilers now.
Okay. Well, I was going to say, do you want to kind of talk about the end of the film, kind of go through that, and then we'll talk about like the legacy and any sort of extra points you want to bring up.
Yeah, go for it.
Cool. So after this point, the family escape eventually after many short turns, and they come home to find that their home is flooded, which we mentioned before. And then they all have to come for the young rich kid's birthday party, all as their different selves, even though they've just had this horrible experience. and they're all really not feeling it. The husband, who is the one who's been locked down in the basement for the last 4 years, escapes, severely injures the young poor boy. I thought he was dead. I thought he was gone. I'm surprised he survived that. But then he comes out and he stabs the young poor girl. The mum, was it the mum in the end? Or the
mum gets stabbed, but she also got some stabbing. She's in there.
Or isn't she the one that stops the husband, or is it the poor husband that stops
I think she might stop the husband because she fights him off a bit, but she's fine with the son 2 weeks. After he's in hospital, they don't know if we'll get away with it.
Yeah, and then the poor dad, something in him snaps and he kills the rich dad.
Basically, they're saying his daughter. They don't know it's his daughter, but his daughter's dying on the ground, and the family are all screaming at him to take their son to hospital because he's got a minor injury, and it's just that moment of pressure versus the whole 20 minutes before. You could just see in his face his patience is gone, like when he's dealing with the dad.
Yeah.
So it's just like it might seem unexpected, but you kind of visually prepared for it.
So the poor dad is running away, and he realizes the only way that he can escape, shall I say the other bit first, or shall I just say that bit?
You can just say it.
Yeah, okay. We don't know at this point, but he runs away and puts himself in the basement of the rich family's house, and then we find out that the young girl dies, so it's only the son and the mum left in the family. And that's pretty much how the film ends. Like, it starts off with this way that you think is actually the real version of it, and then it's actually just kind of like a mental dream version.
Yeah, it's really well done.
Yeah, so you think, like, this is kind of montage of him actually coming back to try and save his dad, but it turns out it's actually he's just saying this is the way that it's going to go.
Yeah, when this...
Yeah, and that's the way that the film ends. You just find them, that they're a broken family, the dad's living in the basement, and that's how it ends.
But again, it draws together all the different themes of the film really, really effectively. Like, there's the main imposter syndrome scene where he actually says it is when the son is with the girl, rich girl, his girlfriend, before the party, looking down on the party.
Oh, yeah.
And he says, everyone looks so cool. Do I fit in here? Do I fit in? And again, cool basically there is a misnomer. It basically just means Americanized. Like, they're all in westernized clothing. If you see throughout the film, the mum, when she's happy, she speaks more English. There's a lot of the tent.
I did wonder why she spoke more English.
The tent is from England. The tent is from America, and that American tent the kid in is sturdy enough to deal with the flooding that's making people homeless in the poor area. So there's a lot of theme. That's another kind of major theme that kind of comes to a head of. Resources can get you what you like. Like, even if the dad had committed that crime, if it'd been a rich dad, he wouldn't have had to hide in the basement for the rest of his life. That's just because he's poor. So the way it kind of brings together those different themes at the end. The son laughing, like they say, it's a neurological condition after a head injury. But, that's not... The film kind of hints that it's not that. And for me, that kind of comes down to... He's, it keeps making the point about how he's like, the copper and the doctor both look too young. They don't look ready for it.
Oh, yeah.
That, again, to me, just makes a point that... Again, he's kind of seeing through the bullshit of the world, and he's seeing that, look, they don't know what they're doing. They're blagging it. No one knows what they're doing. We're all blagging it. It's all just a matter of circumstance where you grow up, and it was all pointless. Like, all their efforts, all their ambition was actually their own downfall. And just the irony of
there is another theme and conversation of that very specific point as well.
Ambition, the kind of danger of ambition that way. Yeah, I think that's really kind of... And then the idea... So at the end, the idea is the dad uses Morse code to communicate a letter to his son. We believe we kind of buy that, and then there's a kind of dream sequence where the son basically has to get enough money together to buy that house to then let his dad come upstairs from down and kind of reunite with his mum and him, the family that's left. But then the son kind of wakes up, he's back at the semi-basement, and Bong's been quite clear about the fact that he doesn't, in Bong's universe, in the real world of this film, the son will never get the money in order to buy that house, in order to free his dad. His dad's trapped down there. The actual ending credit song translates to 564 years, which is how long the son would have to work to pay for that house.
Oh, damn.
So it is a very cynical kind of... It's a cynical ending, but again, the film's very built-in realism, and... It's kind of a crushing kind of attack on capitalism, I guess, and the way it's kind of conditioned people. But the way it draws it all together is I think, really kind of almost the highlight of it. Like, no matter how good the first 2/3 of a film is, if the last third is bad, people are going to walk out unhappy. And it can actually, the same in reverse. You can watch 2/3 of a shit film and the last half an hour is pumping and you're just like, that was actually pretty good. So like, just with that bias, I think it was just really fucking well upheld that the entire time it doesn't lose energy. He's building this tension the entire film, and it doesn't let you down at any point for me.
Yeah, no. Also, going back to your whole point of like crushing like life choices as well. There's a whole scene that specific the message like of the film, or at least of that scene specifically, is there's no point to living with a plan, because no matter how good your plan is, something will derail it, which is pretty much the entire film. Like their plan went well up until something kind of they didn't expect to happen, and then specifically the flood happened as well, which just kind of ruined them. So there was no point to planning it. But then right at the beginning of the film, the whole meaning of, you don't have a plan with your life, so your life is meaningless, because he wants his son to go off to university, and he's so he's so
proud of the ambition.
Oh, he's so proud of his friend for going away to university and actually making something of his life rather than his own son.
Yeah.
But then they're kind of parallel. Well, they're kind of opposite to each other. So it's like, which one do you actually kind of go for then?
Yeah, that's one of the two key pieces of dialogue in the entire film for me. That little dad speech, and then also the line where they're talking about the rich mum, and he said she's nice though, and but she's rich. No, she's nice even though she's rich. And then someone says no, she's nice because she's rich. And again, that to me is a really, really fundamental point of this film, is that's what justifies a lot of the poor actions, and that's also kind of the nature of the world, where you can afford to be nice if you're rich. Everything's cool. Why wouldn't you
there's
be
no
nice?
problems, really.
Whereas you have to, like, what would this family have done if they hadn't afforded the documents and scammed? And then, like, it's the same thing with the dad. The dad was in the basement because of debt and debt collectors, and they never stopped looking. Like, the idea of debt, like, there is no solution. With ambition comes debt, and then with debt you just get dragged further in debt, and you just have to, he end up having to kind of retreat into his own world. And sometimes some films, and it does sometimes feel like the film's telling you that as an outcome, is that what ends up happening is you just have to pull back into your own sphere and just kind of like try and let yourself become satisfied with that, even if it's pathetic from the outside. It's what you can live with. Like things about smell, little themes like that, like uncontrollable things, but things that are definitely keep us apart.
Well, there's a whole thing to do with smell, and what, like, I'll kind of bring it into my devil's advocacy point, was, why did he kill the dad? Like, I know why he killed the dad, but why did he kill the dad?
Yeah.
Like, they were so close to just kind of getting away with it, really. Like, and then he just kind of snapped that way, and, like, there's this whole point of you saying, like, crossing the line, and any time that was kind of brought up to do with the dad was to do with his smell, like the way that he smelt specifically. And for me, I don't know about you, but like the reason why he snapped was because of the way that the rich dad looked down
on him.
Looked down at the guy who was in the basement after he got the car keys after the guy was there, and the way that he smelt, because he like did that disgusted face of the way that he smelt, and then it cuts back to him.
Ooh.
And then he's seeing that as so we're all like this, and then he goes after the dad, because like this specific line was brought up at least 3 or 4 times throughout the film. So at that point I'm like, if that is the reason as to why he kind of did snap and then kill him, but then fair enough, it was built up to it, but then it's like,
see, I think part of that, the other thing that that poor dad repeats to rich dad, which I kept noticing, was he keeps the time he nearly crossed the line is when he's asking him about whether he loves his wife, and obviously rich dad is a little bit borderline with that. And I can't help but think there's a certain degree of, like, there's some other level there where, for example, even when there's a whole nother level where they touch on where, when the rich dad's talking to rich mum, and they're kind of talking about using the panties from the car as kind of like that would get him so hard.
Oh yeah, it does.
Which again is
that scene came out of nowhere, didn't it?
It's hitting on again the way kind of poor people are commodified by rich people for sexual gratification. Like that is another thing in society where they'll feel better than, but then you see a lot of their kind of echoing the behaviors of kind of more and it's seen as like kind of a bougie arrogant thing. Exactly, but it's not. It's the same. It's animal. It's gross. But that distinction isn't there whether rich people would like to think it is or not. So just the way it builds it in, where you see the fractures with that dad and the son, with dad and rich dad, like you see those fractures early on, even when dad is performing his lines on script perfectly, which again is another really, really great scene. The scene where their dad's reading lines. Their family's all together in that tiny space and they're all coexisting perfectly. You know, the sister, when the place is flooded, the sister goes and she sits on the toilet and has a cig and she's happy she's got a cig. And again, that just comes to, for poor people, there's only short-term, you can only look to short-term pleasures because the world's not going to let you have long-term. So her house has been flooded, but she's relieved because she can have a cig and she can get that burst of nicotine. Like, that's just that way of, you can't afford to look long-term as a poor person. Is just another point that I think the film's continuing to make with that stone as well, which
kind
of
comes into like the whole don't have a plan,
don't have hope. Like that stone is representing hope. When it gets flooded, the stone floats. It's hollow. Like, you know, it's just it's to me that's like false hope. That's what that's trying to say. Do you want to move on to the well, actually, while we're doing devil's advocate, because I had
you have a different point. Cool.
I had a different point. My point is, again, I think the funny thing is we both said we wanted to do these devil advocates arguments, but like we really don't believe them for this
specifically for this film. Like, if there's any other film, probably we'd find a point.
My one is whether it's just it ends too cynically. Because also with Bong's life specifically, he was a tutor. There's an idea that son is kind of an avatar for Bong, and he made it. So why can't his character make it? You know what I mean? So especially in light of that real world, maybe, and especially
because he is like, you know, 1 out of a million. You know,
well, it's very true, and I disagree completely with that point. I tend towards cynical. I think films too often try to.
I was going to say, like, I was surprised you even made the point.
Yeah, that's why it's a devil's advocate point I disagree with.
Yeah.
The only other point I suppose as well is that I suppose it comes through. Do you know the no plan thing? That also extends to the rich family. So that's another point that maybe it could have been. Maybe he could have emphasized that a bit more. But if you think like the kid getting injured, the dad getting killed, like all of that is from the chaos of chance of this family getting introduced into their life, which wouldn't have ever happened if Min hadn't recommended him. So it's just like, you know, that chaos influences everyone equally, and we kind of don't really hammer that point home because we don't go back to the rich family afterwards. We just assume they're fine somewhere.
Yeah,
but they will be fine somewhere.
Yeah.
That's again the nature of the world.
Exactly.
But I wish we could have made that point that, you know, at least the mum's going to sleep, have some bad nights and stuff.
I bet they kept the pants.
yeah, we might be right. Right, so our final category we're going to look at then is basically a question of legacy. So we're going to look at how well the film's going to hold up, kind of get into any last comments, and specifically we kind of gave ourselves two little things to consider of the social value of the film and like the cultural value versus the actual pure entertainment value, which, you know, you can lean in terms of significance either way, but I'm just glad that I think for this film it really kind of, you know, hits it out of the park in terms of both elements. We've talked a lot of the social stuff.
Like, you have a lot of like notes in your legacy bit. I don't know if that was to do with other stuff or whether it's this, because I've only written literally because it's already an Oscar winner, so it's already going to be in legacy no matter what. Like, it's in the history books.
The
like,
first
it's done.
foreign picture, it's got a lot of those kind of things going for it.
But in terms of like, I don't know if it's going to be like in the conversation specifically, and I think that's just Westerners in general. Like, I don't want to grass them up, but like I recommended this film to my parents, and like they literally just said no, they don't really they don't want to watch it because it's because it's foreign language, and specifically because they don't like reading subtitles in films. But like, and that's like and they don't like that many good films.
Each to their own. Each to their own.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like, but for that specific reason, I don't think it's going to be brought up in the conversation as much as like other films that are considered greats would do.
I'm going to do my usual and sound super arrogant, but I do think there's only certain certain people are going to cross it off the list immediately, like not even consider it because it's foreign language. Then I think of the cross section that will consider it, I think not to be, again, I suppose it sounds like a dick, but I think they're going to be more like intellectually capable of actually taking in what this film is trying to tell you. Because again, it's not telling you anything. It's not saying rich people, you know, blah, blah, blah. It's showing you that. So I think it might, with the impact it's had on us, that's because we're able to kind of let it sit with us and just let things replay and just think about kind of the subtle stuff going on behind. So I just think maybe it's a problem that it kind of won't get the biggest audience overall, but I think it's got a really good potential of hitting everybody who's going to be there to take on that information. And especially with, I suppose, political elements of the fact of, US South Korea and nuclear and these kind of other things. I think in a big historical picture way, that might actually help because Bong's the only South Korean one. It's the first foreign language film to win Best Picture. There's a lot of things that make it, in a very big picture way, stand out that I think are going to help its legacy.
As a postgraduate film student, like, I'd love for this to kind of be in those kind of films where you do dissect them, because there's only a certain amount of films that you kind of go through on your course, and I feel like this one in like 5 or 6 years should be on that course, just to kind of going through different motifs and the way that different directors from different countries direct films. I think it's going to be that kind of niche that follow into this film. But I do hope it's gonna hold up anyway, because it's still a prominent thing. It's one of those messages. It doesn't matter what time it was made. It's always the same message of like the rich and the poor and their different aspects on life.
Exactly.
And the way that they go through life to get by.
It's metaphorical.
Yeah, exactly. So it's always going to be relevant.
Yeah.
Like there's certain films where like it's done in a specific time. Is in a specific time, where it just gets dated. Like even films like that were made at the start of 2010, like they're super dated now.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, they didn't have to be if you did it in a certain way.
Yeah.
But I think this is always going to hold up in that regard.
Just in terms of filmmaking and stuff as well. Just the precision of it. Like everything's just,
Also, I just want to bring it up again. That water transition.
Yeah, very nice. It was very nice. We go mad for a good transition.
Edgar would be proud.
Yeah, as well, I suppose. I think it'd be really good to just as a introduction to Bong for people, because it's the Best Picture. I think that'll make it a lot easier for people to discover it and then go from that to his other films, and people are watching like Okja and random things like that, which are just a little bit more intellectually stimulating than a lot of kind of films out there, which I just think is a good thing. I don't know if you know this as well. Bong and Adam McKay, who did The Big Short, who's done kind of a lot of stuff. He works
a lot with Will Ferrell.
Comedy, yeah. They're both executive producers in a TV show, HBO limited series, based on Parasite with the same name. So it's definitely, that's a big point for legacy.
What a weird crossover, though, with like different minds.
But again,
different
McKay's been doing a lot more dramatic stuff kind of recently, and he's very kind of well regarded. So it doesn't shock me, especially just for an executive producer thing, that I think it's going to end up making... That's what John, we're talking about, the mass appeal. Maybe this is where the mass appeal can come in.
Maybe this is the way it kind of gets more westernized. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. Although kind of one of the major themes of it is westernization's bad, but hopefully nobody notices that, because they don't exactly like pull back on that point. Oh yeah, cool. So for each of the categories, we're going to give them a star rating of 1 to 5. Basically then giving a final score of 25, and as we go along, we're going to keep kind of a league table of the films we've done, the scores they've got, which categories kind of, and we might even do like a little Excel or something so people can see, like if they wanted to check, for example, which films have got the best edit when we're 100 episode in. Yeah, we'll have them be able to search that kind of one by one. So yeah, if you've got anything to suggest, stick it in the comments, but we'll just go through one by one with the categories. We haven't worked out a lot of these for real so far.
These are mine. I'm going to try and...
Okay.
I don't know if you can see.
I kind of saw
it's very high on my
It's 1 to 5. It's pretty simple. The first one we did was world building.
Yeah.
For you?
I'm giving it 5.
I have to as well, considering the mise-en-scène production we've basically got little bullet points after each of these on just things to direct our thinking. For world building, it's story logic, writing, mise-en-scène, production design, and for me, like every element of those was perfect. Yeah, it was even shot in a weird friggin' aspect ratio, so they could better. It was like 2:3:5 to 1, so they could better get families into all one shot. So it was shot super wide, but just like every degree of what you see on screen and the references to what you see on screen to me are like perfect. Like just the efficiency, they're not giving it away too easily, but letting you infer some stuff for yourself.
Yeah, 5 all the way. Cool. No, so we'll go to our casting.
Yep.
Which again, just to kind of reiterate, is like the casting, the acting, the way that the characters are portrayed, their motifs, like how believable they are, how you can relate to them, stuff like that. For me, specifically for my only point that I can't 100% tell whether they're that good or not. But I mean, I did believe it 100%, but I'm giving it a 4.5.
There was one or two. I suppose we do another little feature called character replacements, which
is coming up.
Yeah, where we'll replace them. And I think I'll get into a bit more detail about where I actually saw some weaknesses in the characters / actors for me. I'm happy to take a 4.5 because there was.
Wait, what were you going to go for? 5?
I was going to say 4.5. I
Oh.
wasn't sure.
Okay, so I think I can be brought down to a 4.
No, see, I'm not doing that. 'Cause I'm going back to 4.5 because I've just realised it's a foreign language film. Like how much has been communicated to us would be impressive if it was in English. So I don't think we can really complain about the character, the
like
actors.
being able to get that, even having to read.
Because we've just had an hour conversation about it. Like, clearly we've taken a
Okay.
lot in.
Is it good enough for a 5 then? Or?
I don't give it a 5.
Okay, fair
Because
enough.
I've got little things I'll pick out, which will explain it in the
Oh,
replacements.
okay, cool. We'll talk about it then. Which is a great plug to go and check out this. Unless this is the podcast and you're watching the whole thing.
And this is partly why I couldn't give it a 5, is because I also realised I can't give everything a 5. And I'm not taking less than a 5 for the next category, which is directing.
See, I put 4.5. But I can be brought up to a 5. I mean, he did win the best director for it, to be fair. And it was also the best picture. So that if anyone's going to get a 5-star for directing, it's going to be this film.
And it's one of those that if we think, like, for one, it was entirely logical and readable at first view. But I think if we watched it another 3 or 4 times, there'd be a whole lot more stuff we noticed, particularly about the directing.
We all got this just off one watch.
Yeah, exactly.
Which usually we'd watch it maybe once or twice, like, sometimes twice. But yeah, okay, 5-star for directing. Editing?
See, for this one I put 3 and left it open. Because I was willing to. I didn't. The problem was I didn't think we could do 4 and above for everything.
I put 4.5.
I think maybe the elements of. I think it was more just this. Like, I like the score. I think it was kind of subtle in the right way. But maybe I think there could have been. I didn't have this one as instinctively as, like, I wasn't as on it immediately because I just felt like maybe there was a bit more to give.
Okay. I'm trying to go through my thing. The CGI.
I was just thinking.
Most of the house was CGI in certain parts.
Yeah,
like they had
that's
to do
true.
reshoots, and they just did it in this random street, and then they put the house in it. So there's certain shots in this where you wouldn't even notice that it was all like that there was CGI.
I definitely think I definitely think I can give it a 4. This is the problem is I can't even really criticize it that much. This is the ironic thing about this. But like when you're feeling like I don't feel like I can. I don't feel like I can give it. I don't want to give the whole film like 24.5 and then just screw ourselves in the future.
Yeah, I know.
But I did really, really enjoy it. Do you think 4 stars?
I can be brought down to a 4. Yeah, definitely.
I think 4 stars because the pacing is really good. The actual cutting, the editing is brilliant.
Yeah,
it's
like
maybe just
even just in like the
sound
conversations,
cues.
like the first scene between the friend and the friend going to university, the poor boy and his university friend, just the way even like that conversation happened, like I just love the way that it and then it just kind of slowly kind of kept coming in until the point at the end. Yeah, like scene pacing for me was like 5-star. Like I really loved it, but I can be brought down to a 4, so I'm bring that down to.
I'm thinking as well in terms of CGI. I suppose it's more like that. Some of the kind of the blood and the violence, like it wasn't. Did it feel that visceral to you? Like it didn't.
No,
feel
but I'm very desensitized and stuff.
Yeah, maybe I wanted more from it, but I just mean like little ways where even the score. Like I did like the score, but maybe something a little bit more obtrusive could have. Because this is another thing is like we have talked about this fairly dispassionately, like kind of like an intellectual exercise. Whereas maybe if there was a bit of it more heavy stuff going on with the score, we might have like kind of emotionally. Because I wasn't upset. Were you emotionally hit at the end?
Not upset, but I related to it.
Yeah,
but I think that's
we sound like a robot. Like it's just the way it didn't really.
I think that's more us, but then I'm more emotional than you anyway.
Yeah.
So if anything, there's more of a disconnect from like your.
If you weren't getting emotional, yeah.
Yeah, if I wasn't getting more emotional, then yeah.
Yeah. But again, we're really picking at nits here because we don't want to give every film 25. So.
Yeah. Okay, so that's down to 4.
Yep.
So Legacy, will it hold up?
5 for me.
I did,
especially
put 5.
with the TV show now. I think that even more adds to the idea of with the way we consume things now. If there's also a HBO series about it, it's just like it will get to everybody. Even if people,
I gave it 5 stars, but like our discussion about it before, I reckon it's going to be like a 4.5.
I think. Do you know why? I think the main reason. I think the fact, like I'm saying, the big picture things, like the first foreign language Best Picture winner, the fact it's Bong. Like I think these elements are the thing that are gonna, in a real legacy like question, mean it'll always be kind of relevant. Like by virtue of the fact that it was it broke down all these kind of barriers that hopefully allowed, like, by being the first, hopefully it's, you know, the Jesse Owens of foreign language films or whatever. Like, but I could be convinced to 4.5. It's just, I just think it's...
The only way that I can think that if it answers this question yes, then it's 5.
Mm-hmm.
I've just forgotten the question. Hang on. Let me phrase it the right way. Like, nah, let's just give it 5 star. Wait, no. Yeah, that was the question.
It's the roller coaster.
Do you think anything else is going to go over this in terms of legacy?
Interesting. I don't think anything
like like we've got a short list of films that we want to watch. I don't think anything on that list.
What even fits into this category of, like, a foreign film that's this globally, socially, and, like, economically relevant? Like, nothing's hit on this many themes, this efficiently,
plus
this
with
globally.
Such like a, you know, for the arguments we were making about
and the timeless themes, like we said. Like, money, rich v poor.
I was eventually leading into. Yeah, okay. 5 star.
5 stars.
5 star.
All right, so if we add it up, 5,
10,
9,
15,
14, 9, wait, race, 18, 20, 23. I got 23.
Wait, it should be...
Wait, we should just take off 2. No, there's only 2 stars it doesn't have. Cacting, it's 4, and edit, it's 4, so it's 23.
I got 4.5 for cacting.
Oh, did you?
I
fair dues.
I thought we chose 4.5.
Well, yeah, we might have done. I probably just didn't fill it in on my sheet. So wait, does that mean it's 23.5?
Yeah, that's the answer I got.
Good for you, Parasite. We can count.
23.5. That is a beast. That is an actual beast.
Very solid film.
So that concludes the... that was so long.
Yeah.
We have a note to say, like, 20 minutes for a film review.
It's not even if we were watching most films, it would have been... We watched Dread, and that was going to be our first one, and that would not have taken this long.
I know you like that film, but I wasn't that big of a fan.
Yeah, you can have some wrong opinions about films. It's all right. Can't all be perfect.
You can shut the fuck up. Anyway, so this is the replacements part of the podcast, but this is where we have some fun replacing characters in films, and we have a bit of an improv run at what that story would be like if we put different characters from different into, like, certain films. And this week we are replacing characters in Parasite.
Yes.
And I have a whole rundown. Actually, I don't have that many, to be fair. But usually, sometimes we do, like, recasts, and we really struggled this week. So what we're going to do is we're just going to replace certain characters from other films.
Yeah, they killed it. We don't want to recast them. It just felt like ineffective. So we just thought we'd have some fun.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
goof off with it.
Although I did have some more serious ones, but they could be funny at the same time. Do you want to go first, or do you want to go second?
I'll go second if you like.
Oh, okay. So I'll give you my more serious one. Kind of. I mean, it changes the story a lot. But I want to replace. For anyone who's not seen Parasite, go and watch the film, then come back because it'll make a lot more sense. So,
sorry.
Well, just in case.
No. I meant from their point of view, not you.
Well, yeah. So, I'm going to replace the underground husband, Ho Johnson. I'm sorry, I'm terrible at Korean pronunciation.
Yeah. We should just explain again. We had rich mom, dad, brother, or son, daughter, brother. So basically, we're just
got
using
a rich family and a
poor
poor family, and then
ruin
the housemaid and her husband.
Yeah.
And I'm replacing the housemaid husband who's been living underground with Pyeon Sang-wook, which is the scarred man from Sweet Home.
Oh, the TV show we were watching.
Yeah, there's a series on Netflix which I recommend go and watch, which is called Sweet Home. It's based on a video game, I think, or a comic book of some sort. And there's this really cool scarred man who made me question my own sexuality. And that's just a different point altogether.
He's like a Yakuza guy.
He's like a Yakuza guy coming around. And my version of this character, it would be that character who comes out of the basement, who's actually a contract killer, who's so annoyed at being underground for so long, he comes out and kills everyone.
Okay.
And then the film switches into a gear. I think he'd go and find the person who was after him, and then he'd just slaughter everyone. And that would be my story. It's like literally taking one whole film, and then it's another whole film, and that's like 2 films for one.
It's very weird. We've both basically followed the same line of thought.
Oh wait, no, really? Why? What have you got?
Because I've replaced Basement Husband, as I've called him.
Oh yeah.
With a character called Oh Dae Soo, which is actually the guy from Old Boy.
Okay.
And I was like, so, do you know he's trapped underground, an old boy, and then he comes out and goes straight vengeance, hammer and all that shit. Same
no
thing.
way.
Same
Oh, okay. That's literally my first one that I wrote as well.
thing. So I was just like, okay, I think I've got to pick this one as my first one because that was like one of my last ones, but that's weird timing.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
We both had the same idea.
Feel more in sync with
Get
you
more
now.
savage.
Wait. Okay, I got a really cool one.
Okay.
So what I was going to do with this one is replace the entire Rich family with the family from Get Out.
Ooh.
Yeah.
The White family.
The White family, yeah. So then they're both trying to outplay each other. And it's like, who's the cat in this situation and who's the mouse? Because obviously they're trying to like scam them into this, but then they're trying to like get them into like this whole system they've got. And I forgot what most of the film's about. But, but yeah, so it'd be like this whole kind of like who's chasing who sort of film and seeing who actually kind of comes out on top. See, I think that'd be a really cool.
That's fucking sick. Again, I've kind of gone along a similar line of thought
No.
where I wanted to replace the entire Rich family. This was my first idea. And I thought I'd replace the entire Rich family with the family from The Incredibles. Because basically I wanted them to know and the poor people not know the whole time that they knew. And then obviously during the middle when we thought things were going to flip, we'd have that be kind of the...
when they find out about them?
The rich people basically let on that, look, where like they find out they're superheroes, they
No
knew the
way.
whole time. They both kind of got information about the other that they can't reveal, and they become like the Alfred family to their like Batman family of superheroes.
Oh, that'd be really cool.
Exactly. It's a whole other twist. The basement's like the kind of operating.
They could turn it all into that.
Exactly. And maybe we can add in some extra political element and have them like, go on some like Korean assassination missions or whatever and just go over the border up north. So yeah, there's a lot of potential with messing with the entire Rich family. I've not done that again really, but that was a fun one that I thought, again, it's weird. We've both kind of gone on the same lines twice now.
Don't think you're going to follow me on this one.
Okay, let's see. You might be surprised.
So this time, you'd replace the whole Poor family, but you put the Family Guy family in there.
Okay, you definitely lost me there.
Because I think it'd be a hilarious, like, especially Peter as the housemaid.
Yeah.
Wait,
you'd be the maid, the driver. You're swapping him. Lois would be a great driver, to be fair. She's very discreet. She's fun.
I was thinking more Brian for the driver.
Yeah, I suppose so. That can work.
Especially the way that he kind of womanizes and stuff, because then he could kind of play the same sort of role, but just Peter flouncing about trying to do all the housework, but then always mysteriously getting it right.
That'd be pretty great. Oh my god, then you've got the whole tensions with Meg and like, all of that kind of stuff.
Wait, I just realised a bit extra to that. The family kick her down into the basement, and then they find something else in the basement. Maybe there's still like a husband, and like, maybe Quagmire's down there.
Maybe the basement's the animated world, and they're animated live in the basement.
Oh, it's like a Lego movie thing.
They only come up when they're not gonna get caught. And it's like a whole nother underground and overground. It's like that's kind of Space Jam now, where the cartoons are underground. But that's pretty great shit too.
Yeah.
Man. I had one more family replacement, which I wasn't actually going to do, but we're kind of along that same lines now, so I might as well. Which is replacing that family with the Fantastic Mr. Fox, Wes Anderson film family.
Okay.
Just because I think Bong's style, but kind of combined with Wes Anderson's and animated,
that'd be really
would
interesting.
look cool as fuck.
Yeah.
And then also like the George Clooney, that family kind of has an interesting. I don't know if you've seen the Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Yeah, we've done a review on it.
Yeah, we did together. You're right. I really like the kind of dynamics in there as well. So it would just be funny to play like the poor family with those kind of same scamming kind of devious minds that they have in the Fox thing, but also add that like physical, they're a literal animal like wrinkle to it.
Okay.
So that would be kind of fun too. But that's pretty much all my whole family ones. Like.
Okay, yeah, I'm done with families now, but I'm swapping. Like, I'll do these two like together if you don't mind, because they're very, very similar sort of thing.
Quick ideas now, anyway.
So I'd replace the rich dad and the poor dad of the Park and Kim families, and replace them with Ennis and Jack from Brokeback Mountain.
Ooh.
And it'd be like a secret. It'd be like a secret love affair sort of thing.
Oh my god, blown my mind. That would have been incredible.
Because then you can kind of fit some like homosexual kind of themes in there, whether it's right or wrong in that kind of culture.
Table when he's with his wife and that whole tension too. Maybe that would also maybe more justification for the murder, I would have to say.
Now that leads me into my next choice, where it's you swap the rich dad and the poor mum to become Dan and Alex from Fatal Attraction. and you do the same sort of secret love affair thing.
I don't not ring the bell. Well, I've not actually seen Phil actually.
Okay, so basically,
is that the one where she pays for, or he pays for it? No, that's the Woody Harrelson one. Forget
yeah,
it.
no. It's another love affair thing, but she goes mental to the point where she is gonna stab him and kill the wife in the situation so that they can be
and you'd
together.
have the rich wife do that.
No, I'd have the poor mum do that because then she's also so or switch them the other way around, whichever works. Because I also put a note in here thinking, maybe the maid finds out and then they kind of kill her together. So that's the reason why more of the family gets brought into that family.
Yep.
And then she's always threatening the rich dad to kind of come out about their relationship. But then there's more justification as to why he gets killed at the end, maybe. But I prefer the first one that I kind of brought up was the Brokeback Mountain one, which I thought was a really interesting one.
While we're on the topic of the housekeeper, I had one change for the housekeeper. It's kind of sad now, but I mean, if we take out the tragedy side of it, Mrs. Doubtfire as the housekeeper. Added some more comedy elements. Added some you'd probably have to change the real parent concept, but we could probably fidget that to a family member that's estranged and they want to just see their cousins or whatever.
Yeah,
and
you could have a nice theme about it rather than
that twist would make the husband downstairs and all that kind of stuff even more crazy. So that was my kind of messing with the housekeeper one.
Okay.
I had a few kind of quicker ones which I just thought would kind of give it a bit of a wrinkle. I thought, the rich kid, the boy, Mr. Bow and Arrow Indian, swap him with Damien from The Omen. Just have him be cursed, have him be the devil, and then that because the whole tension of he's the one who seems to clock things sooner. He realizes they
that'd
all
make
smell
more
the same.
sense.
Yeah, and then it would also make sense that he could maybe start to hold it over them, have some kind of consciousness of
he just kind of keeps
power,
spurting out stuff that only they know.
He just blackmails.
Yeah,
Damien goes blackmail. There was a kind of quicker ones. I thought about changing the lead dad with Mr. Miyagi.
Okay.
Just because I think that would also kind of be funnier. And I think when I was talking about some of the weaknesses with the characters in the actual main review, I think the only thing that really jumped out at me was, the dad in the car keeps saying, "But you love your wife, you love your wife." I didn't really buy that interaction. Whereas I think if he was an older dude, if he was a 55-year-old, 60 guy, you can buy him being the kind of preachy, wanting to kind of have that kind of, that involvement and in that kind of conversation. Okay. So I just think I can see it more with an older kind of driver being an older guy with older kind of entrenched beliefs. And then I think there's also a kind of an interesting element to the old husband, younger wife thing, which we could play around with.
Okay.
But most of my days were goofing around. The only other one that I think is worth mentioning is swap in lead boy, but with...
Wait, which boy? Sorry.
So, poor boy.
Okay, yeah.
Poor boy. With about 4 or 5 years on, kind of teenage Kevin McAllister. And then we've still got the kind of devious mindset. We've got kind of planning stuff. I think the two that I always go back to, which again was my first thoughts, are Matilda and Kevin McAllister. And I had to kind of give them my shout out as usual. That was if you could have made anyone Matilda, if the rich kid could have been Matilda instead, the young one, would have been very interesting, and it would have played more with him knowing, so add some extra levels to it.
Okay.
But generally with this film, it was we kind of mostly just replaced him with funny kind of ones because we kind of appreciate it as a serious piece of cinema enough on its own that I don't know how many ways we could kind of seriously change stuff to make the idea that much better.
Well, I've got one more. I've got one more. So you replace... It's kind of going back to my first one a little bit, but you replace poor dad with Ethan Hunt.
Ooh.
And so here's the thing, right? So he's a spy deep in... It still plays exactly the same way, right? Exactly the same way, but the same actor, everything. Spy is deep undercover mission to infiltrate and kill the rich dad. So at the halfway point, pulls off the mask. It's Tom Cruise.
Oh my god. Oh my god. I buy it.
Yeah.
I can see that. The only thing I did that's similar to that actually is I replaced the lead boy with Alfred Borden, which is Christian Bale in The Prestige. And I was we could have a magic element, that kind of driven desire of it. And there's a little glimpse at those kind of teenage years in The Prestige, but they kind of ignore them deliberately.
This is what he was doing.
He was in Korea getting his dad killed or whatever. so yeah, that was my only other replacement. Honestly, with this, I think it's kind of possibly be one of those running things that the more we substantively enjoy a film, the longer the review versus the shorter the character replacements. So this
yeah,
one,
because there's not that much we want to change, really. We're just kind of messing
really
about.
happy. We had a good time with it.
Yeah.
But things that are shit, well, trust me, we'll have a lot more fun messing with the story and just getting into some real crazy hypotheticals.
I liked all these.
I think these are fun, yeah.
I like them too.
But I know we've spent a lot longer on the past on stuff, whereas this one is just like, it's more just like little ways to give added little wrinkles rather than like before we've entirely like rewritten the film and thrown it in an entirely different genre.
Which will be coming soon.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, this one was a little bit more good shit with the film, a little kind of adding a little kind of bit of a groove to it that they hadn't otherwise thought. So these recasts were definitely fun.
That was it.
Yeah, that's it.
That was it.
We hope you liked the review.
Yeah, hope you liked the review. Hope you liked some of the replacements. Who would you replace, and what kind of story would it follow? Give us a comment down below so we can see and we can reply. I've been your boy Matt.
I've been Dill.
And this was replacements.
Yeah,
Rewrites, replacements.
Rewrites.
I gotta get this outro sorted.
I know. It's barely an outro. It's like a sentence and a half, and we can't fucking pull it off. But
you know what? You shut the